Christmas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Box, the exciting show where we open a box and decide if the box rocks or if it's a box full of rocks.
I don't know if this is going to be a good episode.
This pillow is fucking useless shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, suddenly soundtracks are here to provide you. Suddenly soundtracks will show you care. The soundtrack inside you with sweet understanding. Oh, with sweet understanding. With sweet understanding. Soundtracks are your friend.
Hey guys, welcome to Suddenly Soundtracks, the show where we judge a movie solely based on the soundtrack that it provides. But today we're doing Off the Record. This isn't no movie, but it sure as hell sounds like one. It's Queen's Innuendo, the album, track by track. And I am with PLD from Call to Action. How you doing, Paul?
Oh, I'm doing wonderfully.
Excited?
I'm so excited. And I don't get a chance to talk about Queen very much on the air. So this is when you mentioned this to me or brought this up, I was like, oh, hell yes, give me a time, give me a place. I will be there and I will be ready to go.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Queen in 1 second. But you know, usual stuff on PJCN, we're going to go through the plugs. So make sure to check out our Patreon. There's a bunch of great tiers, including the $25 tier where you can request a Suddenly soundtrack. So be sure to check that out. Tomorrow night we'll be Ramble On with Dan and Eric, 8 p.m. EST, 5 p.m. PST. It's going to be a hoot. Next week we're going to be doing Linkin Park. And then next week we're going to be doing Metallica's Master of Puppets, and the week after will be Linkin Park. It's going to be all sunshine and rainbow. It's going to be great. And also shout out to all of our patrons, executive producer Brandy Parker, Brandon Buckingham, Ricardo Franco, gold tier producers, Sean Wingblade, Michael K, who both requested those two aforementioned shows that are going to be happening within the next 2 weeks. And our producers, Stephen Wright, Kale the Youth Critic, Bador, Jake Berlin, Anton Putra, Tyler Birch, Patricia Carrillo, Chris Picorni, Shira Potato, Molly Damon, Beth Harris, Ferris Muthana, and Jeff Alterman. Game show, bada bing, bada boom. Anyway, Paul, you love Queen. When was the first time you heard Queen, and why do you love Queen so much?
It's actually it's a kind of a funny story. It's not a band that I actually listened to right away and knew I loved. It's a band that kind of over the years I kind of got drip drabbed, and then finally I put it all together. Wow, I love these guys. First memory I ever have when I was a kid in like around 1980. My father had a jukebox because my father used to own like bars in my local area, and he brought home a jukebox and put it in my basement, and on that was Another One Bites the Dust and Don't Try Suicide. And so I listened to Another One Bites the Dust. I liked that song. Right around that time, I got HBO, and Flash Gordon was on. Watched Flash Gordon, fell in love with that. Still didn't really know the band at all. And through the years, like I loved the Highlander. I loved a lot of different things. Finally, I got into a band called Extreme from Boston, and Gary and Nuno, they were big Queen fans. And when Freddie passed, they were tapped to do the Freddie Mercury tribute concert because they were good friends with Brian May. So I watched that, and they kind of like were the Queen, like what Queen was to Live Aid, they were to the Freddie Mercury tribute concert. They just contributed a cover of Queen medley, and it was awesome. But during that, I watched the rest of the concert, and I started going, "Oh, I know that song. I know that song. I love that song. I love that song. So I went right to the store and got Classic Queen, which was like the U.S. version of Queen's Greatest Hits 2, since there weren't as many hits in the 80s for Queen. And I just fell in love with it. I had Bohemian Rhapsody on it, had The Show Must Go On it, had some of the stuff from the Highlander on it. It was a great thing. At that point, Queen like overtook Extreme, and the rest is history.
I completely understand that. Have an obsession with a band, such as like one particular band and it being attached to that music. A lot of people don't realize this is called suddenly soundtracks. These albums are soundtracks to our lives, soundtracks to our emotions, soundtracks to every aspect of everyday life, because we are attached to these songs. Even though this isn't a movie, this still has the aspect of attaching yourself to yourself, and this could be a soundtrack to your walk to work, your soundtrack to your drive to work, anything. And this album completely embodies that. So before we go into the actual show itself, I'm going to lay it down. Okay, I've explained this to Paul off the air. You guys who've seen Suddenly Soundtracks know each soundtrack, in this case CD, is reviewed track by track. Every panelist gives a score depending on how they feel about a certain song. We judge it by the soundtrack itself, not by the movie, but that doesn't apply to this. It's an album. The scoring system is as follows. 6 out of 5 is a hard rockin'. You're only allowed 2. 5 out of 5 is rockin'. Then 4 out of 5 is downloaded. 3 out of 5 is shuffle it. 2 out of 5 is one-time listen, and skip it is 1 out of 5. I don't think we're going to be saying that too much tonight. All right, Paul. We're going to get right into the first track if you're ready for this. And it is actually this is like one of the last singles released in Freddie's lifetime, which is Innuendo. It was a #1 hit. What are your thoughts on this introduction song?
Okay, well, this right here tells you where you're going to be. The 1970s Queen was very much a glam rock, progressive rock. Did a lot of experimental stuff, Bohemian Rhapsody, Prophet's Song, a lot of long music things. In the 80s, they kind of shifted and became more like a pop rock band, became more of a singles act, and that's fine too. I love both sides of them, but I always kind of had a hankering going back to that 70s side of them.
Yeah.
And this right there, a 6.5 minute. Just musical journey through different genres, through different epicness of lyrics, of music, and everything else. Right away, you're like, oh, this is something else. And it actually encapsulates for me. This is actually almost a Queen Greatest Hits album, and not in terms of like all the hits. But like it took like little like slices from their history, and they brought it all together into one album. And this right here is such a awesome, epic sounding track.
Yeah.
A little Led Zeppelin, that kind of like mystical feel. They had Steve Howe as a guest guitarist come in, something they didn't have very often. Steve Howe does the acoustic flamenco part in the middle section, and then the Brian May rocking it with the guitar solo towards the end of that. The whole groove of it. It moves you. It's powerful. There's so much in this one song. It's like you can't sit still for the whole thing. It's you got to move to it. You got to listen to it. You got to listen with headphones on because there's so much going on.
Yeah, I brought up 2 comments by Michael K. Michael K, yes, Innuendo is basically a film soundtrack. It's very cinematic to everything. And actually, everything you said, Paul, is on point. This does feel like a greatest hits without the greatest hits. Because to be quite honest, besides one track, which isn't this one actually, this is a lot of deep cuts, a lot of album cuts, a lot of album tracks, but each song has something unique to say. This track opening in particular, and I researched it because I felt like it, and I knew it felt like it. It felt like a jam session.
Yep.
It's a goddamn jam session, and it just has that kind of vibe because it doesn't have a through line, not necessarily what it says, but musically it doesn't have cohesion because it just feels like it's flowing through what they're playing, and it's not scripted. It feels like Innuendo. It feels like improvisation.
It is.
And I really feel like that's a unique way to start the record. And I feel like it's an accurate way to kind of start this piece because it feels like an album that wasn't necessarily written beforehand. It feels like each song was written as it progressed.
Yes, that's a good point. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It's very sad. It's a very tragic thing. Obviously, Freddie passed after this album. He had the Made in Heaven album, which is kind of a hospice collection of stuff. But what I love about this, they never got to play this live with Freddie. They played it only live once in their career. Only once in their career, and that was at the Freddie Mercury tribute concert with Robert Plant on vocals. I mentioned the Led Zeppelin of it. Yeah. So Robert Plant sang the lead vocals on it, which was an interesting take. I mean, it was really kind of cool. He weaved some "Thank You" from Led Zeppelin in there, and then kind of.
It does have a little bit of Zepp, yeah.
Yeah, but you're exactly right. It's definitely a band thing. Freddie came down. Freddie overheard them playing. He's like, "Let's just make this happen and make it work." And they didn't do that very often. They kind of started off, and then they usually became much more crafted. And they used to all four of them. There's a big story about Queen back in the day. They used to each bring their ideas in separately because they had four solid songwriters for each like. I think that's the only band in the world, I believe, that all four members had a number one hit somewhere. Like they each had a songwriting number one hit.
Well, yeah, because Roger had
a kind
Make
of magic.
Love with the Car.
I'm in love with my car. A kind of magic.
Yeah, and the bassist I think did Another Bites the Dust, right?
Bites the Dust.
Yeah.
I Want to Break Free was also done.
Yeah, I Want to Break Free. And then Brian had Bottom Girls and all
Rock
that
You,
stuff.
Fat Bottom Girls, and Freddie, of course, had Bohemian Rhapsody and everything else at that point. But so we had then these
such a great
in.
band. Damn.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a talented band.
And great is just an understatement beyond understatement. So, Paul, quick, what do you give Innuendo as an opening track?
I got to tell you this right off the bat. I wanted to give 3 hard rockins, and I know I can't. So
no, I screwed you over. With
you did. You totally screwed me over. I had 3. I'm going to use one of them right away because this is one of my favorite songs off the album. Right here's my hard rockin' right away. It's that good.
I gave it a rockin'. It's not hard rockin' for me, but it does. As I usually give a rockin' to the opening tracks of things because it has so much responsibility.
Yeah,
so much responsibility as an opening number. I think we discussed this with you. You were on Scrooge. Like every opening number has so much more going for it in terms of responsibility compared to every other song on the record, because it has to draw in the audience.
Yep.
This is a jam session. None of it's scripted. A lot of this album feels the same way, and it does its job perfectly.
Beautifully. Sets it up beautifully, saying, "This is Queen. This is Queen." That's what it says right from the get-go.
Now, Paul, track 2. I'm going Slightly Mad. This is a very the music video is quite interesting. What are your thoughts on Slightly Mad?
What a journey into this next little slice of thing. Freddie, like what I love about this song is Freddie's obviously, he's suffering during this thing. When he's making this, he's like towards the last times of his life. He still finds the humor in life. He still finds the joy, even if it's a little bit dementia joy. It's like this great. There's this great story I have that Freddie and Peter Straker, who's an actor. He was a good friend of Freddie's from the day. He used to be in like Hair the musical, and he used to have his own albums and everything else. They actually stayed up all night just writing like different puns and we tried to make each other laugh the most. And Freddie just took the best of them and put it into music. And
that's how I felt. Like it felt a little bit hodgepodgey.
Yes,
a little and to its detriment a little bit to me personally. I feel like musically it doesn't like connect with me as much as the previous song did, because it kind of just has this sort of laid back feel and it just meanders a little bit. And I feel personally that the music video is kind of weird. It really, I don't know. And I understand it was the second to last because Freddie's frail and you can tell. And they put him in makeup, and these music videos are shot in black and white to kind of cover up all that stuff. So I have to, honestly, I'm going to be a little bit harsher on this than you probably are going to be, Paul. I gave it a shuffle it. Okay. It felt all over the place, and it just, musically, it kind of just meandered a little too much. I guess we're probably in disagreements with it. What do you give Slightly Mad?
Well, I will say I am trying my damnedest to be non-biased. It's hard for me to be unbiased because, like, I can listen to any Queen song, and because of Freddie singing it, it just makes me happy. Like, so even like the worst of the Queen songs, I'm still like, I love listening to it. But this one, I would probably give it, trying to be unbiased, I'd give it a download it. Almost because I do like the humor behind it. It kind of harkens back what I said before about this being Queen's greatest hits album. This kind of harkens back in a way to trying to back when Freddie used to throw these like vaudeville numbers into the Queen songs, like we mentioned, Seaside Rendezvous, Bring Back Little Jared Brown. There's little slices of humor that aren't meant to be anything completely like pop rock kind of stuff.
They're not even meant to be on stage. They're just meant to kind of be there to kind of complement each song.
Right, exactly. If you ever get a chance, there's actually a cool version of this. They had another version called, I think it's called the Totally Bonkers version, or the Mad Mix, and it's even more crazy.
Mad Mix?
It's like on the it was released on the 2011.
Because I know there's a bunch of
version.
bonus tracks with alternate mixes.
Exactly. So, there's like a little bit of Mad Mix. To me, it committed even more to the madness, which made it even more fun to listen to. There's a little more Brian, like weird guitar sounds in there and
that's
stuff.
cool.
It's kind of cool. So I dug that one even more. But this is I still enjoy this. I'll give it a download.
It's far from the worst thing ever.
Right.
So we're gonna go right. We're gonna go right into. Actually, we mentioned Brian and his guitars. Brian has a distinctive sound, and you can tell when he writes a song. And Headlong is completely and utterly, and the song after it is utterly the definition of Brian May. This is a utility song. Like in a set list, a utility song is a rocker to kind of bring up the mood of something. And this does the trick for this record. Both these songs back to back. Paul, what are your thoughts on Headlong and Brian's contribution to the Queen landscape? Because most people think Mercury wrote everything. He didn't. So
Headlong for them.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny you say this in a way, because like what I mentioned before, Queen up until The Miracle, the album before this, they had obviously gave everything, each band member got credited with their own songs.
Yeah.
In order to like chill in the arguments or everything else, after The Miracle, it was all credited to Queen no matter who wrote it. But if you're a discerning fan, we know who really was the main catalyst. And exactly what you say. Innuendo was actually a band thing. I'm Going Slightly Mad was obviously a Freddie song. This one was very obviously a Brian song. Brian always wrote, I would say, the most straightforward rock songs.
Yeah.
He was more a full-on rock song than power ballads. If it's like a true power ballad or a true rock and roll song, it was most likely Brian.
And that's exactly why him and Meatloaf connected.
Exactly.
His style is what you think of when you think of rock opera.
100%.
Yeah.
Very epic sounding with guitars. As many guitars on it as possible. There's never enough guitars on here. And Brian, this is exactly it. Brian actually wrote this initially for his solo album. Did he do that? He brought it and he played it for Freddie. Freddie sang with him. Brian said, "All right, it's a Queen song now." And it's a straight rockin' song. It's fun. You dance to it. You groove to it.
It's catchy.
Lyrics. It's very catchy. You start singing along with whoop diddy ditties, whoop diddy doos. Like harkens back to almost like old school rock and roll, but in a modern setting. I love this. I love this quote a bit. I could jam to it almost any time.
I'm actually going to do something with this because I think talking about this next song and this together is probably for the best in terms of conversation. We're going to go right into I Can't Live With You, and then we'll go into both of the ratings and what you think of this one. So I Can't Live With You also feels exactly like a Brian song. It really, really does. In my notes, I say that the typical, it actually feels, that's what I figured. It sounds like Fat Bottom Girl.
Yeah.
The chord progression is essentially that. You can literally medley this with Fat Bottom Girl, and it just is, and it screams Brian. What are your thoughts on it, bud?
It is a poppier rock.
Yeah, it's poppier.
Song.
Yeah.
But actually, there's an interesting story behind this, and there's actually a version of the song that I like better that was released on the Queen Rocks compilation in 1997. What the problem with this song was, Brian and Roger got together. They never could quite get the drums right, and it's like as during the time that it worked. So actually ended up using programmed drums, which is a random thing. You never hear that from Queen very much. So the drums are almost complete program, which kind of makes it suffer to my ears. In the Rocks retake, they had more time. They figured it out more, and it's Roger's live drums on the track, and so it's actually a lot more of a rocking version to it. It feels more rocking. It feels more edgy.
Percussion it felt a little bit artificial.
That's what it was. Exactly what it was. If you ever listen to it, it's just called the Rocks retake. It's a so much superior version to this song that I wish when I make an Innuendo playlist, I actually substitute it because it's actually better. But
that makes more sense.
This isn't bad. It's just a more popular side. It's a less. But it's a fun song. It's a fun love song that Queen doesn't do very much as far as pop rock, like this kind of love song. I did like it. I like quite a bit. Freddie is very playful with his vocals, which I always love when he gets playful towards the end. So overall, I think it's a fine album cut.
Yeah. So for Headlong and I Can't Live With You, I gave both of them rockins because it is the quintessential Brian songs, and they are utility. They're needed, and they actually kind of give me that kind of, because I love Fat Bottom Girl. Fat Bottom Girl is one of my favorites. And again, when you bring Brian, and he's kind of my style of music, even more so than Freddie's writing, it's just great. But Paul, what do you give both of these tracks?
I give Headlong a 5 out of a rockin'. I actually, the funny thing is, because I know of the other I Can't Live With You, this would be a rockin', but now it's a download only because I prefer the other one. I prefer the other one.
The other one would be a rockin'.
Correct. I really stress it after you should listen to that version of it. It's really more edgy sounding, really more rockin' sound to it. So
most of the time when a band remixes their track after they realize that, you know what, maybe this version isn't the best, it's sort of almost
Wasn't
9
finished.
times out of 10 it feels more finished and better. Billy Joel has done that with Songs in the Attic. A lot of people release live albums because they feel like their live sound is better than on the record.
100%.
I haven't delved too much into Queen's live stuff, but I'm assuming a lot of their live versions are amazing. Because I know Live Aid is great, and I've seen clips from Wembley 1985. It's just
I prefer like Somebody to Love Live from from Milton Keynes from the Hot. It's called Live at the Bowl or Live in Montreal. They're both even superior to the album version of Somebody to Love.
Yeah.
Keep Yourself Alive is also one that's much better live and rock. And the whole Hot Space album is better live because it's more of a rock album. Like Hot Space was their disco album, and they used a lot of programming stuff. It was a bad album, bad era for them. They were like much more into like the drugs and the dance.
And then they wanted to like kind of like, you know what, this sounds a little too disco.
Yep.
Too many dance beats. Let's put in
a concert.
The same exact thing with Blind Before I Stop.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's just when you're in that era, you're trying to get your album released, you gotta accommodate to the audience. But when you're live, you don't have to worry about that. People are just there to see you. You can fucking do whatever the fuck you want, and it's great. Yeah. Paul, don't try so hard. Thoughts?
This is actually funny because John Deacon, the bassist, didn't actually have a lot of credits on this album. I thought this was a John Deacon song, but it wasn't. I found out later on. This is a Freddie song through and through. And honestly, it is so beautiful for me.
So beautiful.
His vocals in this is like butter. As this falsetto is clear, he stopped smoking after The Miracle, and his voice kind of came back. He lost a little bit of the raspiness he had in the 80s, partially because he was sick at this point. But the falsetto in this is so crisp and clear, making him sound like a young man again. And it's such a wave of beauty throughout the whole track.
It's almost an a cappella kind of.
Yeah, it's very close to it.
It feels like, because you can hear that underlying canon in D, the underlining. This is going to go into the final track. The show must go on. You can hear that the chord progression underneath the vocal, and it's great foreshadowing to how this record ends. And we'll get to that song when we get to it. But this really foreshadows the finale.
It really does,
and it makes this record feel like a musical.
Yes,
because this is a motif. This feels like a motif, Paul.
It really does.
It really, and his vocals are so superior. Hey, Cam Shaft, everybody. I'm just looking at the chat and also going into conversation. I'm not as good at that as PJ and Max are, but you know what? I love you guys. Thank you guys for the support. So Paul, don't try so hard. What do you give this? This is a beautiful piece,
Definitely rockin' piece.
Yeah.
100%.
I think we're both on the same page for this. It just has that musical kind of motif from A Night at the Opera.
Yes.
This could have easily been in that.
100%.
100%. All right, so we're going to go right into the next one, which is actually a precursor. We actually mentioned it. I'm in Love with My Car. This Ride the Wild Wind, although it's not sung, I think it's
sung by Freddie. Roger does a little he's very prominent in the chorus parts and everything. The concert part. That's what Queen actually did. They
have like a mesh of vocal, which is really cool.
If you ever want to know who wrote a song too, like when Roger writes a song, his vocals are more prominent. When Brian wrote a song, his more prominent. Roger, actually, there is a demo version of him singing the lead vocal on this, and he used to bring this live in his concerts. There's a live version out there with him singing the lead vocals on it, and it's really good. But this is very much a Roger type of song too. He likes rock and roll like Brian does, but a different kind of way. But his is very rhythmic sounding, very driving sounding. But I love Freddie's lower register here. Yeah, I ordered that specifically for you, Max. And you guys. I figured I'd pimp the shirts out. I'm really impressed with Freddie's lower register here. He kind of like doesn't go high. It's really kind of lower in the range and really tells you a story as he's bouncing along to it. But it's still got that real great driving feel. It's a little haunting and it's a little powerful, but yet it rocks at the same time. It's a tough line to straddle, but they managed to pull it off very well for me. Yeah,
this is just the precursor to I'm in Love with My Car. You can even kind of tell that this, like, I'm in Love with My Car is just super cheese. It's a super cheese song about a man basically in love with his car. It tells that story, and this is just a very fun, tongue-in-cheek. It's great for the record. I don't know if it really actually fit though the theme for this album. I feel like it could have been on something else. But musically, I think it meshes is fine. I think I gave it a solid download. It's not one I would go back to much, but I think it's a solid track. What do you give it, Paul?
I actually give it a rocket.
Okay.
At first, I probably would have given it a download, but it really grew on me over the years to the point where I actually go back to it now. And maybe because I heard Roger do it live, and I became a big fan of Roger's solo stuff. So when I can come back to him, this is still a Roger song, and I still really appreciate what it's trying to do. It's different. It's different from the rest of the album, which is what Roger does. Roger's stuff always doesn't really fit what you would think the album is. It's usually kind of an outlier to a degree, but sometimes that's what makes it nice in a way. It's like a nice alternative to the rest of the stuff. So I really dig it. It's good. It's good for me. I'm going to go pure rockin'.
Go for it. Yeah, because it totally deserves it. Now we're going to get into something that, as far as I know, I don't think Queen has delved too much into, which is kind of the African kind of sound that all God's people bring. I am aware that this was originally an outtake from Freddie's Barcelona project.
Yes.
Yeah. But Paul, could you tell us about Freddie's Barcelona project if you can? Yeah. And your thoughts on the African kind of inspirational music of all God's people.
Well, okay, so Freddie Mercury had his solo album called Mr. Bad Guy, but during the making of that, he wanted to meet Montserrat Caballé, who's a Spanish opera diva. He's always been a big fan of opera, so he finally went to Spain, met her, and they hit it off. They decided to write a song for the Olympics, actually, for which are going to be in 1992 in Barcelona. They hit that, they met. Freddie's idea was to have one song, and Montserrat Caballé kind of said, "Oh, so we're going to write an album down." And Freddie's like, "Wait, so I got to write 8 more of these things? All right, well, let's do it." And decided he wanted to make it a pure opera. He didn't want to make it like a rock opera. He wanted to make it as pure opera as he could, and just add his voice to Montserrat's. And I went through this great process. It's actually a very cool album to listen to. There's a lot of great musicality in there. It might be a bit much if you're a rock and roll fan. It might be too much farther off the beaten path for you. But if you love good vocals, you love good music, it's got it in spades. Now, going back to this particular track, Freddie's always had a big love for gospel kind of stuff as well. Somebody That Loves on there. Also on that Barcelona project there, The Golden Boy is very much so gospel. Don't Try Suicide Off the Game has got a gospel feel to it. So this actually fits right in with Freddie's guy. Aretha Franklin was a big inspiration for Freddie. So this actually does have that kind of gospel background to it. Adds more of the world music. I think that might have some effect from Mike Moran, who was one of the who co-wrote the track with Freddie. Great orchestral guy as far as he orchestrates a lot of music and everything else, and does a lot of keyboards and things like that for Freddie, especially in Barcelona. But that's what I love about this track in general, and a lot of people don't like this song. I've heard a lot of Queen fans kind of like they skip it, and I'm like, I don't understand why they skip it, because
the harmonies are incredible.
There is so much going on in this. There's so much depth to this. It does, exactly. Musically,
it doesn't sound like a normal Queen song. I guess that's why it probably kind of detracts people. Because it doesn't. It sounds like, as Michael Kay said, it actually sounds like something from The Lion King.
It totally does.
Which really does. It's just so musically unique, and it made me want to delve into the Barcelona project. And look, I guess it is off the beaten path, but that's still more Freddie. That's more Freddie that we don't get, sadly.
Entirely true, man. I can tell you, I would prefer, and I'll tell you this right now. Mr. Bad Guy is there for the Mercury solo project, but that's a more straightforward pop key. It's 80s pop keyboard thing. I prefer Barcelona over that any day of the week because it's actually musically extremely, extremely strong. He also wrote with Tim Rice, this famed lyricist. Tim Rice wrote some lyrics with him for Barcelona as well.
Tim Rice co-wrote Lion King with Elton.
He didn't write All God's People, but he did write on that Barcelona album.
But it makes sense that it has that kind of vibe to it. Yeah. Okay, so All God's People. Paul, what do you give it?
Man, this was another tempting one for me to give Hard Rocking. It's one of my favorites, but I had to save that for something else, so I will go Rockin' as well for this. I know I'm getting a little boring, sound like I'm giving everything Rockin', but I can't help it. I just love it that much, man. I really do.
For me, it is a Hard Rockin'. This is one of my Hard Rockins'. I love the musicality of it. I love how it's so unique, and it kind of has that African feel that I really love that kind of music. I really do. And when a rock band does it right, they do it. Are you big on Springsteen or no?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
One of his recent records, Wrecking Ball, had a song called "Land of Hopes and Dreams," which has
favorite off that album.
Okay, so you know exactly what I'm talking
I know exactly
about.
what you're
It has
talking
that
about,
fucking theme, and it's just like the African music like that is so amazing, especially when you mix it with rock and roll. So
Yeah.
it's great. All right, so going back to the banners. Okay, this song is very special because this is Freddie's last appearance on film in his music video. These are the last days of our lives, and this was released as a single back when he didn't have much more time.
Right.
Paul, what are your thoughts on this very deep song? Even though
So
it's not a huge hit, it's still very special.
this is one of the most special tracks. This is another one I was actually tempted to give a hard rockin' right away. I'll tell you because written by Roger, which is amazing to me. This is actually a Roger Taylor song. But
I didn't know that. I thought it was Freddie. Okay, wow.
Yeah, Roger actually channeled Freddie when he was feeling like that, and this is where that song came from. Roger actually sings this a lot now in concert with Queen and Adam Lambert and Queen and Paul Rodgers, and he does it on his own albums now. Actually, Roger and Brian will sing as a duet sometimes. It's really powerful because they have like Freddie on the screen and they'll be singing it.
Oh,
but
they still do this live?
They still do this live occasionally.
That must be heartbreaking.
It is so sad and so powerful, but yet there's still kind of underlying sense of some positivity there. Even though you know it's a sad song in a way, there's still that kind of sense of like, I don't even know what it is, acceptance maybe, it's hard to exactly say, but it's a very simple song. There's nothing like earth-shatteringly musical about it, and yet I think it's because of that the message and the song just becomes even more clear. Like the simple harmony in the chorus, but the
It's a good bio letter.
It is completely a good bio letter to the fans, and that's why he committed to doing the album and committing to do this video live, not live, but he committed to doing this video for the last video. He knew this was going to be his last video. And if you're watching, he has that like heartbreaking moment at the end where he says, "Yo, I still love you," and then like just kind of goes off screen, and that this was completely a goodbye letter, and it's what a note to go out on. It's a powerful, beautiful track, and I love it.
Yeah, it's just so emotional. The music in here is so. It's not necessarily the most musically rich song. It's not a song that, if under other circumstances, this song probably wouldn't be as good as it is,
right?
Because
absolutely.
of the so it's just such a beauty. My notes I have it's just feels so like you're used to Freddie being in Bohemian Rhapsody. You're used to this god on stage stomping around with a mic stand without a bottom.
Face, right.
Yeah. And he ends it on such a melancholy song with very little instrumentation, very little energy, but the power is there, and it's just super magical. I can't give this anything more than a rockin'. Like I my hard rockin' is safe for something else, but this is still spiritually a 6 out of 5. But based on the rules of the show, it's a 5 out of 5 for me. But it is so beautiful, and under different circumstances, this wouldn't get as high marks for me as it does. But this is beautiful.
I would also say I feel like you're saying exactly what I'm going to say. I probably, if this wasn't under circumstances, I might go as low as a download.
Yeah.
But because of how powerful it is and how wistful it is, and even like it's some of the stuff that happened afterwards, like when Roger kind of took over the vocals, it's even more just as powerful, just as moving to hear Roger's take on it as well. So either way, that's one great thing about Queen is that they have 3 guys who really could have been vocalists for any band, really, but yet they're all in one band. That's what makes their vocal tendency is so rich and so powerful. I love this one.
Wow, Mike K says this song closes out Queen Greatest Hits 3. Wow, this closes that out.
It does. It is. Yep, it's the last track they wrote. They decided to make it a closer at that point. It was released after Greatest Hits 2, because it was the Innuendo album's release. Greatest Hits 2 was released towards the end of, like, right around the time when Freddie passed, and this was released as a single after that. So, but that's why I went on Greatest Hits 3.
And maybe for nobody just saying, I'm just not familiar with Queen, but he'll catch the replay. Thank you so much, Movie.
Thanks, man.
You're a great person. So this is where me and Paul are probably going to butt a little heads here, because, in my opinion, these next 3 tracks are the lows of the album, because I feel like they're pretty filler. I feel like after this song, before the last song, the dip in quality of tracks is more prevalent, in my opinion. Okay. But we're going to get into we're going gonna get into the song about the cat, Delilah. Yeah. Paul, what are your thoughts on Freddie's lament to one of his 11 or 12 cats he had?
Well, honestly, it's funny enough. Roger Taylor would actually agree with you.
Oh, really?
He's not a big fan of the song.
In
fact, he's not actually on the track because when Freddie talked to him and displayed there's a story where Freddie just like talked to the band about the track, and Freddie introduced this whole section. He introduced the meowing section where he had Brian's guitar meow. Roger,
kind of cool.
It was cool, but Roger hated that so much. Roger hated the thing so much he walked out and didn't walk out of the session without a word, and just never came back to the session that day. So, but it's funny. I get it, and this is the one track on the album which I would actually consider a little bit filler as well. This is it's a fun track. Again, it harkens back to those humor days of Freddie. I like seeing Freddie so humorous, facing what he's facing. He's going to talk about, he's like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to do a song about cats and how much I love them. Because I can, because I'm Freddie Mercury, I'm dying, and I can do whatever the hell I want to do. So, like, in some ways, I respect it completely. And I love Brian making the guitar meow sound. It's kind of funny and silly. It's a laughing kind of number. I can't take it seriously as a musical number. And so I get why this would be, like, considered maybe as a flaw in the gem that is the album in a way. I can't not like it, but I completely get where you're coming from, and I'm never going to argue too strongly in favor of this. This is not something I seek to put on. Let's put it that way.
I appreciate that. It's like, you know what? You only live once, and Freddie went out with this on a bang. Outside of that context, though, it's not as powerful a context as these are the last days of our lives. So to me, the context goes out the window, and I'm looking at this from a song point of view, and I love the meowing guitar, and that's all I really say that I like about it. It's not trash by any means. I'm giving it a shuffle it. But by the way, somebody, Camshaft said that, is Jake Acavella a Queen fan? Oh, no.
She's joking because he actually went out his way and found the Queen hat that I wear, purchased the Queen hat I wear, so every once in a while he'll pop up on stream as me with the Queen hat on. That's what
okay. Because I was like, if he's a fan, we can get him on the... But no. Okay. Paul, actually, since you're kind of defending it, what are your thoughts on Delilah and its rating?
It's funny enough. I could see it giving a shuffle it. I think maybe I might be saying shuffle it. I only might be saying it because I feel like I have to make something sound lesser than rockin'. Kind of take it away. I kind of feel like this is my way of sounding less biased. Although when it comes on, it's something I do laugh at still. I do enjoy. So when it comes on shuffle, I'm not going to skip it. I just won't seek it out.
Yeah, if Freddie went on his last legs, it would have easily been vetoed. Yeah, I totally see that.
I totally see it too.
You know what? We're going to get into a more interesting discussion with the Hitman, though, because with this one, I feel like it already hit the same beats that Headlong did in terms musically, because Hitman just feels like run-of-the-mill utility song. This is the third song in that set list where you just bop it in for the audience to get them on their feet so you can have the momentum of your show.
Right.
This would work if it was the second or third song on the record. This late in the record, it kind of feels a little too samey to Headlong and I Can't Live With You. And was Hitman written by Brian May?
That's actually funny because you would think so, and I thought so for years. But what it really was, it started out as a Freddie track. Freddie and John had done a little bit together. Brian said he wasn't even in the room when the original riff happened, but he changed the key and he kind of reconstructed some things. But then I guess John sat down and reconstructed the whole track and changed the order of things. So it really ended up being kind of a group thing, but not initially a Brian piece. But I think he Brianized it. I think that's what happened.
It is very Brianized, yeah.
Exactly. That's what happened, basically. That Brian took it and said, well, I'm going to make this rockin'. Now, I will go off and let you say, and I'm not as far from you as you think. I do think that this is a song that is actually probably one of the hardest tracks in their catalog. It's very much a straightforward, like, blasting, rockin', like, almost metal-esque kind of track. The problem I have with it, honestly, is that it just goes on too long.
Yeah, I get that. It's what?
It's like 5 minutes, something like a 5+ minute track.
It's 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Wow, that's,
right.
Yeah, that's a long for a utility. Yeah,
for the utility stuff. So if this had been edited down, and the thing is also because it kind of has this motif, and then all of a sudden like there's this like instrumental jam at the end, which doesn't really go anywhere for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. If they had cut that out and it was shorter and sweeter, I think it might have been a better filler type track for it.
It feels like it was recorded live in the studio and they just kept the raw tape.
Yes.
Look, it's a good song for what it is. I just don't feel like on this record it fits, and it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb.
I get that to a degree. I like it better than you do.
Okay.
I can do. I definitely like it better than you because I definitely, as someone who, it's kind of funny because I grew up being a very hard rock fan, so I've always loved Brian's like input on stuff. So when I get to hear Queen, as much as, all right, let me take this back a little bit. Queen, one of the things I like most about Queen is the fact that they are so genre bending. They just do everything. They do like from gospel to disco to rock to metal and everything else. So I love that about Queen. So when I get those heavy metal, hard rock moments from them, I treasure them a little bit more. You don't get you don't get a full album of Queen if you got hard rock and like really rocking and chugging and rocking. So I do appreciate this for being one of those slices I don't often get. So that's why I do like it a little more than you. But I do get the argument of it being filler-esque.
Yeah, it does. Even though I do appreciate it more than Delilah, and it's not terrible by any stretch. It's just on a different echelon than the rest of the tracks on the record. It still does get a shuffle it from me, but it's a high shuffle it. It's not. It almost teeters on. Download it. What do you give it, Paul?
I'll probably give it a download it, and
Download,
it teeters on. It teeters on a teeters on a rocket for me. If it just had been edited down a little bit more, it would have gotten a rocket for me.
Cool. Differing opinions is always great for a conversation.
100%. And this is the big one we're going to differ, I think, after what you said. So go ahead with this one.
This is going to be interesting. Bijou. I hope I pronounced that right. Bijou. Okay, so Bijou. This is a very interesting track where kind of it feels like the guitar is more prominent than the actual vocal, and it has a very kind of it feels like the guitar is singing and the vocal is doing the instrumental work. I hope I'm making sense.
No, you are, because it's exactly what they planned on having happen. That was Freddie's idea. Freddie wanted to have, instead of having the guitar solo in the middle of the song, he had a vocal solo in the middle of the song. And that the guitar part was the voice of the track to a degree.
I'm trying to think of the song that also tried to do that. There's another song in classic rock that tried to do that as well, and it's very interesting. Paul, what are your thoughts on this interesting thing, though?
I might like it more knowing what I know in terms of this is actually a Freddie and Brian collaboration.
Yeah.
And the best part about it is they did it on like a lark. They switched roles. Freddie actually wrote the guitar bit, and Brian wrote the vocal part. Even though they performed each other, so it was like Freddie sang it, obviously, and Brian played guitar. But they definitely wrote it that way. They wanted to write that with that in mind. We're like, we're going to switch this thing around. We're going to play around with the way music is presented. And I love Brian's guitar work in this, too. What I love about the whole...
The guitar work is great and the vocal work is great. I just don't know if I really connect with the music itself as a sort of standalone piece to listen to over and over again. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
It does. I always kind of liked it as a precursor to the final track.
Oh, it's an overture, of course, yeah.
So it's a little bit of an overture. It's just like that kind of like, well, we're entering the final stage. This is our setting up of everything else in a way. Again, so I love the vocal. The vocal line is very, very soft, very straightforward, but very pure. So I do love this track a lot. I do think that maybe it gets a little, again, it's kind of a little bit long at times. Could have been edited down a little bit, maybe a shorter, like 2-minute piece instead of like going out to 3.5. But overall, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think you could listen to it and have a good time with it.
Yeah. It's definitely the strongest of these three. It's a download it for me. Because I do like and appreciate the uniqueness of it. It really is unique. And I really like how they were kind of experimenting with it. It's just a track that is good in context to the record. It's not probably good outside of that context. Have they ever done this live?
Brian actually added it to his guitar solo in the Queen plus Paul Rodgers era. During the 2008 tour, he put this guitar. What he did was he played the beginning. He actually had Freddie's voice tracked, so Freddie kind of came into the speakers.
Oh my god!
While Brian playing, and then it kind of cut out, and then Brian ended it and moved on to a different part of his solo. So in that aspect, it worked really well.
That must be great live.
That's a powerful moment there. So that might actually influence me a little bit, to be honest.
If I knew that and I saw that, I might have been influenced too. Okay, that's wow. Okay, that would have probably brought that up a little bit. Had like again, the live atmosphere changes everything in every aspect on a song.
You can look up "Live in Ukraine." That's probably the clearest video they have. Queen plus Paul Rodgers and "Live in Ukraine" in front of 350,000 people. So
Wow, is that like a DVD release or
it is
something?
DVD. It is a DVD Blu-ray release. So
Damn, them live just sound so good. All right, so we're gonna go into the show must go on. Probably not just the most famous record song of this record, but in hindsight, this is probably one of Queen's most beloved tracks. And sadly, this was released a month or two as a single before Freddie passed. So Freddie never got to perform this song live.
never.
Now I do know a couple things about this song. I believe that Brian wrote it, which you would think Freddie wrote it, but it's really Brian saying goodbye to Freddie. It's
Right.
Brian just giving Freddie his kind of his goodbye letter to Freddie.
It is.
And it's just so powerful as a best friend, just giving this to your friend. I just feel like, how was he able to hit these notes as frail as he was? It just sounds so perfect. And this is probably one of the greatest album closers of all time, if not the greatest album closer. Paul, what are your thoughts?
You said a lot of what I was going to say, but like there's some great moments. Brian wrote most of it. He actually did have Freddie help out a little bit. He actually kind of came to Freddie very nervous about this. He's like, I don't know if I can let Freddie. Can I present this to Freddie to sing? He's like, this is kind of seems like almost like am I doing too much? And I guess Freddie was like, oh, he's like he actually maps him out as like, hi, you meant it to be falsetto, and he said, like, there's a quote from Brian was, I really don't know if this is asking way too much, and Freddie just went, oh, darling, not a problem. I'll have a couple of vodkas and go ahead and do it, and he did. The best part about it is he just threw a few vodkas back, propped himself up on the recording session because that's how weak he was at the time, and did the whole fucking song in one take.
One take. Oh my god! Yeah, it sounds so beautiful and so powerful.
Holy shit! One take. Oh my god! Like that kind of. He's dying, man. He puts that kind of one take out on it. It's so powerful.
Mike, this is my 6 out of 5. If it wasn't obvious,
Mine's
it's both of our 6 out of 5s. That's second 6 out of 5s. Mike says, but to be completely honest, as much as Freddie crushed the track, he thinks Elton's is better. That Elton John version is really good, but Elton does not hit the notes that Freddie can hit with this. And yes, Elton is amazing. I'm a huge Elton John fan.
I am too.
Yeah.
It was very emotional when he did it. Absolutely,
It's very emotional, and I love that version.
I do as well.
And I think Adam Lambert does a great live version too.
Adam Lambert does. Paul Rodgers actually does a pretty decent version of it as well. It's a very more bluesier version of it, so it isn't quite as emotional, but it's still good. It's still very solid.
I take it this like ends the show most nights. Or
what they usually do is they usually do it like, at least for the Queen Adam Lambert era, when they do it, it's like this, then Bohemian Rhapsody closes the song. Then closes the night, and then they have the encore of like "We'll Rock You with the Champions" after that.
Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah,
right. But
this track is a masterpiece. Well, I would actually consider it probably easily one of the top 5 Queen songs of all time.
People always ask me what my favorite Queen song is, and I can never really say. Honestly, it's too hard for me to say because I love so much of it. It's so.
This
hard
might be
to
a
say.
discussion later on down the line too.
It could be, but I will tell you that like usually what I can do is I can kind of like narrow it down to 5 and say they're kind of in a rotation, like depending on what I want. White Queen from Queen 2 is one. Under Pressure is actually one. Who Wants to Live Forever might be one. This is one. This is definitely one in
Under Pressure is a marvel too, and a lot of Queen songs are deep cuts.
Yeah,
but you'll be surprised that like the hits are the hits for a reason.
Yeah.
I just feel, and also I like 39, which
39's a great track.
Yeah.
It's a great fun track. Yeah. I love watching them do it live. It's a great time when they do that live.
Yeah.
Another during the Queen plus Paul Rodgers Ukraine album, they did a great version of that. Like Brian starts out the track kind of solo, and then Roger comes out with them, and they bring musicians in. Like they bring like the keyboardist, the other guitarists. They all walk down to the front stage, and they kind of come in together and play it all as a band. It's so much fun them doing it together.
Yeah. It's just these 4 guys are masterpieces of their work. So what I'm going to do here, Paul, is this. What are your overall thoughts on Innuendo?
This is the album that, considering what they went through as a band, in the 70s and in the 80s when they kind of like went off the beaten track. The 80s had some good albums. They had some great Queen albums. But this was like the return to the glory days for one last big, solid hurrah. And they got together. They all kind of like, when Freddie made his like announcement to the band that he had AIDS, they all kind of like circled the wagons together. They became a big family. All the fights were out the windows for the most part, well, except for the Delilah thing with Roger. But that's, that's a day thing. But they all kind of decided to get together and just, it all became about making the music again. And giving Freddie that one last time to like make music. They couldn't tour, obviously. So what are they going to do? Is Freddie going to sit around and mope he's going to make as much music as he can, go out on doing what he does best and doing what he loves the most. And they really became a true family again. And because of that, I think that shows in this album. That really shows throughout the album.
And it gave them the momentum to survive even after Freddie. Yeah,
absolutely. It really did. It really did. They were able to do it. And they took some time off after Freddie passed. And some people argue they should never have come back. I don't care. I mean, Brian and Roger have come back to do stuff with Paul Rodgers, with Adam Lambert. But I think they've earned that. I mean, what else are they going to do? It's theirs. They wrote a lot of songs just like Freddie did, and they performed. What are they going to do? Just put that away? Put that go to sleep?
And they give Freddie those nods. They give Freddie...
Every concert. They don't call Queen. They say Queen plus whoever. It's the spirit of Queen. It's the soundtrack of Queen. And it's like them as much as they have left to give. And they never go a night without either Freddie appearing on screen, doing some vocals with them, just to kind of say, this is where we come from. He's not here now, so we can enjoy it and have a good night together and have a good time together.
Yeah. And the fans love that because they understand, too. He's not here, but he's here.
Right,
and
exactly.
You got to still celebrate that music live somehow. And this album really kind of is a great way to go out. I feel 100%. Like this album is one of the best goodbye letters ever written. And 100%. It's a 12-track goodbye letter, essentially. Yes. And it's perfect in every aspect. It's the album itself, although there are, in my opinion, a couple of weak points, has the cohesion. And even in our favorite movies, there are scenes that were probably not that great, have flaws. This soundtrack, though, feels like, as said earlier by Michael K., I think in the chat, a cinematic kind of experience.
Yeah.
And it's a Queen record through and through.
100%.
Yeah. So, Paul, where can the good people find you online?
At Paul_Denuzio on Twitter. You can find me on a couple different podcast shows. I can do on the Call to Action Network for the Schmodown Talk. You can find me on Action Industries with Ben Bateman and Andrew Guy. You can find me on Tuesdays executive producing the FCL, the First Class League. And finally, I'll throw my own out there, PLD Projects, where right now I'm just doing a Star Wars show every Sunday called Scoundrels of the Force at 2 p.m. Eastern. But I'm going to talk, especially with this, what you said, we talked about it before. I'm going to be hopefully entering the world of short form edited content, like maybe 10 to 15 minute videos. I'm going to call them Mercurial Musings, and I'm going to go through every track in the Queen catalog, and probably if I get through those, I'll probably go on to the solo albums as well, where I'll talk about them. I'll give you the stories that I know about them, because I know way too much about them, so I got to get it out somewhere, and I'll rate them for you and everything else. We'd have a good time talking about that. So hopefully look for that soon. Hopefully when I can get a little bit of free time, I'll start that up as well.
Yeah, it's always good to talk about music, Paul.
Yes.
And we're gonna do another Queen record in the future. Great talking about this fucking band.
Yes.
It is. So, guys, next week we're going to be going through Off the Record, Master of Puppets, Metallica with David B.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be fucking amazing. And then Linkin Park, again, David B. will be joining me along with James White and Sean Windblade, who is one of our patrons that requested it. And Michael K. also requested Master of Puppets, by the way. He's in the chat right now, so it's going to be great. So for myself, you can find me on Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter at ChrisClug8788. Those numbers mean nothing. And from Paul, we say to you, keep rocking.